Hi everybody, welcome back. We're going to look at the project file for my remix of Andy Moor and Somna featuring Linny, More Than Love. So this is not a high BPM trance track. This is a progressive track. You could even say it's a little bit like future rave, a little bit like melodic techno. And the track itself was supposed to be called the Remixed Remix, which was a side project from myself for doing this style of music. But when the whole thing was finished and it had like a lot of energy about it, we decided that it would probably be better to just call it a Sam Laxton progressive mix, just to like avoid any confusion between the projects. So the first thing I want to talk about is about how we came to doing the remix in the first place. This is a new technique which I've been using for pitching my remixes to labels, and that's instead of going to the label and saying, please can I have the stems, please can I have the vocal, blah, 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 instead of doing that, I've been using a AI vocal remover, which if you Google that, you can find there's many different ones where you can upload the original record, whether it's in WAV or MP3 format, and then you can ask the platform to strip the vocal from it. You can do the same thing for making instrumentals as well. You can actually get it to take out vocal completely from a song. So I did that for this particular song, and once I got the vocal part, I dropped it into the project and played around with it there. And then once I got like a suitable draft together, I've been sending that to the label and saying, look, here's what I've got in mind for the remix. What do you think? And fortunately, in this case and a few other cases over the past couple of years, that's kind of been like a sales pitch in a way, that I've been able to show what I see like in potential for the song. And then the label, they like it, they accept it. They then send me the actual parts, like the stems, which is what happened this time. So that's a little technique that I've been using to pitch my remixes to labels. And it's been working great so far, because you all know how much I like to do remixes, and it makes it far easier to show what you can do with it as a sort of rough draft, and then move on from there. So that's what happened for this one. You can see that I got the vocal parts sent to me, the harmonies, the lead parts, everything dry, and some vocal chops as well from the original project, which I then I think I've just put them all in as they were, and then like an art acoustic reverb on the like bus channel, just to give everything the ambience for the record, the 10-second time design, just something to make it sound good, before then sending everything to get stem mixed down anyway. But I've also done this cool little thing here with the vocal. So I took the vocal chop and then I put it through the phone EQ. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the phone EQ, this is to create the sound that you would hear if you were speaking to somebody on the phone, which is like cutting out most of the low end, boosting it a bit around the upper mids, and a little dip on the top of the EQ. And that's what creates this phone effect. So without it, it's got a lot of depth. It sounds beautiful, but it wasn't there wasn't enough characteristics. Like it wasn't as interesting as it is with the effect on. And what's cool about that is that you can use this EQ for multiple different elements, right? The EQ you can put it on like part of the melody. You can tease part of the melody with it, or you can use it to play around with like parts from the breakdown, but like in the DJ intro, And it was actually from watching tutorials by Husman that I picked up on this as a cool little trick. And I think W and W also do this for some of their records as well. So that's what I did for the vocal chop there. Everything else just straight in from the file, from Andy and Ben, Somna and Linny. I must also point out that the record, it's a progressive record. It's 124 BPM. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do this video, was to give you some variety, because I've done many videos now which are focused specifically on the future sound of Egypt and pure trance style. But for this was like a free reign, do what you want to do style remix. So yeah, the intro, we've got kick and bass going through my normal kick and bass bus, which I've shown on loads of my videos. I've also got like a low cut here with a high cut as well. This is to create the sort of filtering section that you'd hear in techno records, where it would feel like they took some of the low out, but also some of the high, which allows the more melodic parts to breathe through. And for this kick, again, it's gone through a sampler and a little bit of EQ. This kick is from Matan Kaspi, Stan Kolev sample pack from a long time ago, but it's basically the sort of kick that you hear in many melodic techno records and progressive records these days. I'll play it for you. It's very nice. It's kind of like a quite like a sterile, very sterile, clean kick, but it's got a little bit of a raw edge on the top. And yep, again, what I like to do is to cut the kick before the half of the bar, so then any of the lower frequencies don't bleed through into the second half, which allows you to let the sub bass kick through on like a lot more clarity, especially when you're playing this in a club. I think what I'll do is I'll just play this part of the intro so you can hear what it all sounds like as well, if you're not familiar with the record. Yeah, so that's the intro and the verse. You can see it's quite short compared to what I normally work with. Like we've got the DJ intro is like 30 seconds, which is a bit risky if you're used to playing DJ intros with a minute or a minute and a half. But yeah, you can see it's got like a kind of melodic progressive feel, while also still having like the energy of what you'd expect from a trance record. Part of that is to do with the bass. So the bass line, despite being two layers, is quite energetic. There's two layers. So the first one comes from Omnisphere, which is, I think if we listen to it, it's just kind of like an 80s bass line, mid style bass that you'd hear in most trance anyway. And then we've got Serum as well. Serum's got more like a lower gritty bass. So the two of them together have quite a lot of bite when they're playing at the same time. And not only that, is that the sub bass follows a similar pattern. I've also got the velocity assigned to the level, which I talked about in my last video about having to when you're using psytrance bass lines like this, you want to automate the volume to the velocity instead of using a sidechain, because it's the way that the volume works. It's much more efficient, like not efficient, I would say a lot more effective. So this is the sub. So you can hear that's a psytrance bass, but you wouldn't think it was a psytrance bass because it's obviously not a psytrance song. So that's great because you can hear all three parts doing their thing all at the same time, and as like one body of sound. And that's really what you need when you're working in styles like this is, sure, layer things as much as you like, but make sure that they create space, make sure that they all add up to create something that is better than the parts. On that, I've got some EQ, got the virtual mix rack plugin, virtual channel on the Brit end, so that adds a little bit of low end warmth to the sub, and they're all going through to the kick and bass bus with the kick, so everything together sounds nice and clean and spacious and like works really well, especially in a key like C. I think this record's in C minor, so I'm not dealing with low bass lines, which is pretty cool, but like with a kick like this and a C minor bass line, it's pretty clean. And percussion wise, it's a little bit different from when we're working on Trance records. So I've got a few different things. I'm just going to have a quick check what we've got here, because I didn't check this project before I started the video, partly because I wanted to kind of rediscover it with you and like look at it together. It's actually just, from what I can see here, it's just a loop and a clap. So we've got a kick, a loop, and a clap, which just seems like not enough at all, but it actually sounds pretty good. That's all there is. Just a kick, clap, and a loop, and there's no EQ on those, apart from a filter on the percussion channel, which helps me create those transitions that I've told you about before, which is to automate between the sections, so then you can create some tension and release. After that, we've got crashes, typical 909 crashes. And I've also got this longer reverse cymbal here during the breakdown, because the breakdown itself is quite, let's say, film score-ish, a bit soundtrack-ish. There's a lot of orchestral parts, and I felt like a 909 crash wasn't really going to hit the spot. You kind of had to have something that's a bit more thicker and stereo. So I've got this one. And that's just really nice because it fills out the space, especially with that very long reverb tail that we've got on with Art Acoustic Reverb. And I've also got some snare rolls. I think these are functioning the same way as that I've mentioned before. No, they're not. Although it's probably volume automation. Yes. Is it? Oh, okay. No. I've assigned the volume to the velocity, but I've automated it, which looks a bit weird, but it's creating the same effect as if I'm doing the drawing these in. I suppose it's an alternative way to do it. And there's a bit of reverb on there just to create some room. And it looks like these snares are from 22 Bullets sample pack. 22 Bullets is actually a Thai DJ. I've got some of those samples from his 789 sample pack. So that's not like a 909 snare that you would associate with trance. It's more like an actual acoustic snare, which gives it a little bit more character. Build up, I've got this snare, which is kind of like David Guetta, I think. I don't know why these are. Let's have a look at these. I know what I did. Okay, I remember now. So I've got these two snares which are going through a bus channel. Both of them are like tight snares that are like snappy, and they're inspired by the future rave stuff with Morton and David Guetta. But in order to create a lot more of a cohesive automation towards the drop, I've bounced the two channels to one audio file. So this file here is actually just these two bounced. And then after that, I've done the volume automation on the audio file itself. So I've in Ableton, you can just drag the what's it called? Let me get this fade. Drag the fade across, and then it gave me a lot more control because, as you can see, it slightly tails off towards the drop, which helps. Like that slight volume automation really helps to create the like pulling everything back before the chorus hits. And you'll hear all of this together when I play the breakdown as well. You'll see what I'm talking about. I've also got these percussion effects, which are taken from Sounds of Revolution Minimal Techno, or is it Melodic Techno? It's one of the packs. And then I've took it and I've just whacked it through. Let's have a look. Yeah, I've whacked it through a send, like I've made a little baby send channel here with some more reverb, and it's created these kind of textural hits. And as you can hear, they're also in the key of the record, which helps because that means that all the atmosphere follows the same tone. And all of that really helps fill it out. And I've got them dotted around throughout the record, apart from in the break. And then little 909 clap to create some rhythmic variety. Just this here. Which doesn't sound too bad. Looking back, I could probably cut out some of the low end. Some of the low end from that, but never mind. I've also got some vocal textures going on. I've got the little trick that I told you in the last video, which was that you should have a looping texture just to fill out create like a vocal bed. Which is nice, subtle, and fills it all out. You can also see how the vocal itself is quite strong. The tone of her voice is lovely for these, like for this key of the record, and when you've got that bass line just jumping around underneath, it's like it's a lovely contrast, because she's creating this really, like, she's really setting the theme of the whole song with her, the tone of her voice, but also the beat is like suits it really well. And then next things we've got, right, so I've just opened up everything so you can see where we're heading with all of this now. I've got the, right, I've put the vocals down here now. Put them back up here. Okay. We've got all of this going on in the intro. Seems like not too much beat-wise, but there is a lot going on synth-wise, because we have to try and create some excitement. We got a slower BPM for a start, so we have to try and think about using synths to pick up the energy. We also have to think about not overwhelming the listener with too much stuff, because you can notice it more when it's a slower BPM. So what we've got is, I've got this ARP sound. I'll play it for you. So I put that there because it comes back later, and it's also used in the outro. I tease it a little bit just there for those 8 bars, because when you show when you play an element of a song to the listener, then you take it away. The next time it comes back, it has a lot more of a reaction. And this sound itself as well, I need to point out, it's not synthy, actually. It's a marimba. It's a more organic sound. And this goes back to what the guys at Anjuna Beats are doing, and what I think it was what Jono said from Above and Beyond, was that when you're making music, try to get an organic element in there, because it's all like a synthy soup. A soup of synthesizers, and to have something like organic, I'm sure I've mentioned this before as well about using pianos. Like, to have something organic, it just helps bring the track to life and helps it stand out from a sea of oversaturation in the market, right? So we've got that there, which automates through, like, in and out. And that's the MIDI for it. And like all the synths are already here with the LFO tool on. Then we've got this motif here, which is only doing, I think it's only doing it once here. And that sounds like this. And this is from Serum. It's like a melodic techno synth, future rave-ish style. I don't know if I can play it, can I? No. No, because it's frozen. But the reason for putting that in here was because there's a break on her vocal right here. And I think it ties the section nicely, like ties like this phrase nicely to the next one, because it's starting to build up with all the elements. So this is what it sounds like here. Hold on, let me just play it in full.
I'll find my way to you, guided by this inside.
So you see we go from like there's no percussion going on here, there's no other synths just apart from the droney thing underneath. And then as soon as we play that, that's when everything's gonna kick off, and I've also got the claps playing as well when that hits. So got clap and motif. So yep, after that, ARP starts to play again, and I've got these drones. There's a lot of drones. So I've firstly got this one. This growl from Serum. I've also got this one here. And I use that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I named it that. If I named it that, then that's quite funny. Yeah. Inside joke. Next. I've got these pads which play from Spire. And they're just holding the same notes, so they create a synth, like a synth bed, which sounds very nice when it opens up. You can see, I'll show the automation as well, so you can see everything that's going on. I've also got these high strings. This high string is from Omnisphere, and it's just a single note as well. During like this DJ build part. I've also got these cashmere brass stabs, which are a bit more useful for EDM, but if you take them and then you put a big reverb on and you put them a bit lower in the mix, then they help create a lot more texture. And obviously that sounds very cinematic and makes the whole composition have a new dimension to it. There's also this one, which is actually a reverse hit. It's a reverse synth hit that I reversed. So I took the reverse sound and then reversed it myself. So then it creates this piano-ish sort of big dumb sound. And there's another higher tone reverse here. And one here as well. Another one here. And lastly, we have this ambience, which is really low in the mix. You can see it's minus 45 dB. And that is thunderstorms, like you can hear rain. And for some reason, that seemed to really help create the texture that was right for the breakdown. Loads of textures, loads of different sounds and reverse sounds and drones, which helped bring the whole thing to be a full sound. And we also have this I call it the intro lead. We can still put it as part of the drones. It's like this lead from Serum, which is just bouncing back and forth underneath. And and that's kind of future ravey in a way. It's got a nice tone to it. It doesn't sound like a super saw, and it doesn't sound like a very clean saw either. So it's quite nice. And then you can hear like it's going to sit underneath the main vocal, but we've got the filter down, so it sounds like it's in the distance.
Though the journey's long tonight, I'll find my way to you.
Yeah, very nice. And I think that's pretty much it for those textures and intro parts. There's all these effects and white noises and stuff and risers, but we've talked about that a lot on the videos, and I don't want to waste any more of your time to discuss those. What I really want to focus on is just showing you the different types of synth work that goes into making a record like this, because it's not the same as making a trance record. Like not even close. I would say it's totally different approach, trying to keep it simple for a start. But even in addition to that, you have to think of like this record in itself is also about making it sound cinematic. And one of the ways that this was able to be achieved was through the use of hardware. So for the Novation Peak, I actually sampled a lot of different hits and pads and Rhodes organs and all this different stuff. So the first one I'll show you is this here. So that is like proper 80s style synth pad from the Novation Peak. On top of that is 2 organ style sounds. I think these are organs. We've got one here. Yeah. That's like an organ with a long reverb tail. And then on top of that is a Rhodes style organ. So all those 3 together have a real nice 80s feel to them. And that's those parts that operate together alongside the sub pad. So all of those sound nice and thick without the need of any super saw. And also on top of that is this piano, which I think I've put the velocity a little bit lower than usual, just to help it sit in the mix underneath everything. So it's all the same chords. And then I've also got these strings from Nexus, and they work in a way that automates the mixer volume. You could do this in the utility if you wanted to, but you can see that the way that the volume moves is to try and mimic the effect of actually having an orchestra, because with synthesizers, with like synths and work in electronic music, a lot of the sound is a bit robotic and lacks the human touch. But for orchestras and string music, there's a lot of expression, right? There's a lot of crescendo There's really, really quiet parts, and then there's really, really loud parts as well. And for this, I wanted to try and allow the strings to come in gradually towards the like we call like like a nosedive. Want to really, really build up, and then to have nothing afterwards. And I was able to do that by putting the strings in underneath like this. So all of that together is really, really full, and it didn't require me to rely on super saw pads or any sort of typical trancey effects and sounds. And I've also got this part, this synth here, which is from the Novation Peak as well, which I've used just dotted around. I think it's like more like an atmosphere. Yeah. So that also helps, and that's got more reverb on it. So that's it for the hardware and the pads. I will play you the breakdown so you can hear how it sounds. So the next part we can talk about is the build up to the drop and the drop itself, which we can see doesn't have a drum roll as such. It's just a very small section before those snares hit in that I talked about earlier. So there isn't too much going on. If we look at the effects that we've got here, I've got like impact, and then I've got this riser, another impact, and then this. I've got this here, which is like I've sampled the sub bass rising and then popped it into the project as a sample, and then I've got these like, it's sort of like a cinematic impact, like very deep, kind of like an explosion underwater. Then more. And yeah, so what really creates the tension is if we don't even have those effects, what really creates the tension of what's going to happen is this like David Guetta style lead. And the way that this works is that it's quite a simple melody for a start. So what we've got going on here is it's kind of like a DJ effect. We want to create this feeling that the sound is getting wider and wider and wider, and then pulling it back in to be really dry. And that is what creates that big cinematic epic build-up, and then just slams it right back in on the beat. So to do that, the reverb is automated for a start, and also the EQ, so that we cut out some of the low end as well, and we increase the reverb on the bus channel. On the main channel, I'm also doing the same thing. I've got the auto filter to help do like that sort of cut off automation. I've also got more reverb effect going on later on the single channel. And even if you look at the channel, I don't want to unfreeze this in case we cause any CPU issues, but we can see that we have EQ, delay, glue compression, multiband compression, more reverb, a filter, another EQ, another reverb, and I believe this mastering channel contains even more compression. An OTT, for example, you could achieve a similar effect, more compression, and then another EQ. So there's a lot going into that just for that one sound. And you can hear it as well, that it doesn't just sound like a simple saw. It's got a lot of like a piercing character to it, which helps it push through the mix. But what's good about it as well is that it's got these spaces in between the notes where the reverb is obviously trying to come through, but it doesn't quite come through because the notes themselves are pushing down on the reverb. So we're actually like suffocating the reverb, which is good because it makes that dry signal appear more clean. So it doesn't seem like nothing's becoming a soup. And that is happening with the drop, like the main drop. So here, if I play the whole thing together. So what's going on there is we've got that, what appears to be, let me just quickly do the maths, 16 bars of like straight bass line with the riff on top. Meanwhile, I've also got this lead support and pads coming up towards the next 16 bars. And this is to add more texture before we start changing the chord, like changing the bass notes, which then helps drive the energy. And the sounds themselves, let me play them to you. So the lead support sounds like this. So those sounds help fill it out without being too overwhelming, because the main lead itself is strong. I've also got this analog style break string pad underneath, so that helps bring in even more depth. So yeah, that's doing like more textural work. And so after the main drop, I pretty much just copy the same thing that I've done here before the verse, like a sort of little section where everything fades away, or the new idea, or the previous ideas come back, especially with that marimba. And then I use the marimba to help carry the record all the way out. So this is what the end sounds like. So yeah, it's quite a simple record. Don't let the number of channels fool you. You know, a lot like the reason why there's 92 channels is just because there's a lot of group channels. There's a lot of audio, audio bouncing and stuff. But yeah, the record itself is quite simple. It's actually more about sound selection than it is about like the number of elements. I also think as well, like having the strong vocal is what really helps the record like stand out. And I'm very happy with the outcome. Looking back at this project, it shows that I don't have to overthink too much about what I'm putting into my other stuff, because if you can make something like this, which is pretty simple, it can still sound great. So after all of this was put together, I sent it off for mastering, and then it was released a few months later. And yeah, it's one of my more successful slow BPM records, and I quite especially now with the whole popularity of melodic techno and progressive, it's quite nice to hear this sort of sound. Being so like being found by many new listeners. I think somebody used it for a promo video for a festival on TikTok as well, which helped drive views, and it does quite well on Spotify. The slower BPM records seem to be doing a lot better on Spotify, probably because of how they can be listened to at home or driving. It doesn't require too much energy. But yeah, as with every other video that I do, if there's any questions that you have about the project, or you'd like to know anything more about this one, or if you have any other projects that you'd like me to go through, I'm absolutely happy to do that. So that's it for me today. Have a great day. And yeah, like I say, if there's anything else you want to know, let me know in the comments. And yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers.